Hello, it's me, Ariza Gaming, and welcome back to another episode of Sandbox Showcase, the series where I talk about problems in Oxygen Not Included and how you can solve them easily and efficiently. So today I want to talk about bathrooms. If you've played this game for approximately 10 minutes, you've probably realized that duplicants like to pee themselves. A lot. So this video is going to cover how you can design bathrooms so that your duplicants can do their business in peace, and you don't have to worry about maintenance. You can just set them up and they'll run forever and you don't have to think about them again. And I'm also going to cover some best practices about how you can schedule and organize your dupes so that they don't end up in situations where they need to go to the loo but they can't find a bathroom, that I should really pay more attention to myself, to be honest. I'm making this video for myself. But yeah, let's begin. So, at the very start of the game, without researching any technology, you're going to have access to the outhouse and the wash basin. So you start off with these buildings. Now, you have to fill the outhouse with dirt, and it consumes 13 kilograms of dirt per use by duplicant, and produces 19.7 kilograms of polluted dirt out of that. So you have a net increase of 6.7 kilograms per use. Now, this polluted dirt is bad for two reasons. One, it off-gasses polluted oxygen, and if your duplicants breathe polluted oxygen, then they get the yucky lungs debuff, where they consume 30% more oxygen for a while, which is bad when you're trying to keep lots of duplicants alive in your base. And even if they breathe in only a little bit of polluted oxygen, they are going to get that debuff, even if they're mostly in clean oxygen. So you don't want stuff to be off-gassing in general, and it's very messy. Secondly, they're going to get lots of germs from this, so they're going to need to run past a building that removes the germs. And the wash basin is the building you start off with to remove the germs. When your duplicant run past it in whatever direction is on this arrow here, you can configure the arrow. They will consume 5 kilograms of water from the machine, turning it to 5 kilograms of polluted water, and they will remove the germs from themselves. Now, food poisoning germs are relevant because if your duplicants are covered in those germs and getting them everywhere, if they get them on food, they might get the food poisoning disease, which makes them just less efficient in general. I don't recommend it. So you don't want them spreading germs around everywhere, especially not onto objects and onto food that they might touch. So this is why you need a wash basin. But the third reason why outhouses are bad is because they need to be cleaned out every 15 uses. So if you have 3 duplicants at the start and they're running off of one outhouse, this is going to need cleaning out after 5 cycles, and a duplicant is going to have to plunge this with a plunger, and it takes them quite a while. So it's not very efficient, and if your duplicant doesn't end up getting around to it because it's an errand they don't want to do or they don't prioritize it, and your duplicants all need to go to the bathroom, then they're probably going to pee themselves. Now, you can just deconstruct and reconstruct the outhouse in that case as well, but that also takes time and micromanagement. It's not good. So you're going to want to quickly move away from these as soon as possible. And the next thing that you'll research, which I generally recommend, is the lavatory and the sink. So these buildings are a little bit different in that they take in their inputs and outputs via pipes. So for the lavatory, you pipe in 5 kilograms of water and you output 11.7 kilograms of polluted water. And that's just handled in the pipe, so it never off-gasses. And you can make a self-contained system that is just going to keep everything in a closed loop and you don't have to worry about it. So this is the foundation of that. It also produces slightly less germs, but that's not super relevant. So let's actually set up a little water source for them. So this could be whatever. It could be a puddle on the ground. It could be the output of a geyser after it's been cooled. It doesn't really matter too much. So you'll just want to build a liquid pump, and that will be hooked up. You'll need a little bit of power for this. Your duplicants can generate some power via a manual generator and a battery. A regular battery will do at the start of the game. Jumbo batteries are slightly better. It doesn't really matter too much, but for the purposes of this video, we're just going to use a good old coffee mug. So put some wires in here. You'll hook this up to your pump, wherever your water source is. And then you're going to use that to fill up your pipes. Now, you can connect these input pipes in series like this. You want the output of the green output of your pump to go to the white input of your lavatory and your sink. And you can do it in series like this for the entrances. So if we just unpause it, you see the pump is working away. And that's going to fill up both of these buildings. And that's just fine. So now they're both filled up. What you can also do is you can just cut this off. And you can have the entries go into this like separately. And this way each of these is going to fill up and they're not going to be dependent on each other. It doesn't really matter too much for this input. But what I would say is for the output pipe where you've got the polluted water coming out of both of these buildings, you can't hook it up like this because the polluted water flowing from the lavatory will block off the polluted water flowing out of the sink. So in this case, you do need to hook it up like this. So generally, I just do it like this for both ends. And that way I don't get confused. So there you go. So the next part of making this a closed system that you don't actually have to worry about is removing the requirement to pump water from inside the map and dumping it outside. Because you could just dump the polluted water out with the vent, but then the issue with that is it's going to off-gas into the environment, produce more polluted oxygen. You don't want that if you can avoid it. So I'm going to show you how to do this in such a way that you can just avoid doing that altogether. So that is going to depend on the water sieve, which is a building that you can research fairly soon. I'm just going to put this here for now, just to show you what to do. So again, you're going to want to take the green output pipes of the lavatory and sink, hook them up to the white input port of the water sieve. So this water sieve requires a little bit of power, not too much. It can intake a very large amount of polluted water and output a very large amount of regular water. So one water sieve will usually be fine for however many bathrooms you want. You do need to feed it with some filtration medium, which is either sand, generally, which can be found all over the place on most asteroids, or regolith, which you might find on some classic setups, or on particular spaced out asteroids. But it's usually going to be sand. You need a little bit of that, and it will turn the polluted water into regular water. It will produce a little bit of polluted dirt, but this polluted dirt will stay in the machine and won't off-gas, so your duplicants can dispose of it in a more controlled manner. So that's a-okay. So then what we'll do is we'll hook this up to our power network. So we'll just run our wire down here. And then we'll set it up so that the clean water coming out of the sieve is going to go back into these. And once you've filled up these pipes, like this, you can just disconnect this pipe from your initial water source, and that water will get recirculated through here. And because the duplicants produce more polluted water from the lavatory than they consume, this loop will eventually completely fill up with water. So you don't have to worry about input water ever again. However, you do have a new problem, which is that you're eventually going to have so much water that it actually blocks the pipes, and then stuff is going to stop working. So how do you dispose of the extra water? Well, there's a few different options available to you. The water that comes out of here will be germy and full of food poisoning germs, so I don't really recommend dumping it straight back out into the environment in case your duplicants get covered in the germy water. But you can dump it back into the machines and it's fine, because for some reason the clean water going to this doesn't actually need to lack germs to be usable, even for the sink. Using germy regular water in a sink is still going to remove all the germs from your duplicants, so you don't need to worry about that. So, you have a few different options of what you can do with this excess germy water. What you could do is you could send it to a liquid reservoir, which can hold up to 5 tons, and you can just keep building these wherever they are. And that will keep the germy water contained, so you can use it somewhere else later on. And that's not a problem. So what you would want to do in this case is you would want to put a liquid bridge here before the water gets to the lavatory and the sink. And you would use that to make sure that all the water comes primarily out of the sieve into the bathrooms and keeps it filled up. And then what would actually happen is the excess water, once this loop is full and this bridge can't actually convey any liquid over here, then the water will start to bypass the bridge and it will go down here. And what we can do is we can just take this liquid tank, we can put it a little bit further away, and then that clean water can come out of here and go into the intake of the liquid tank here. So then all of your excess water is just going to get stored straight in here. And then you can keep chaining these along however you need to, just to make sure that you've got capacity. And this isn't primarily what I do, but this is useful in cases where you don't have any other way of disposing of the water. It just lets you hold on to it indefinitely, and then you can use it for something else. What you can also do is you can actually you can actually put these in a room, and you can fill that room with chlorine gas. And the chlorine gas interacts with the liquid specifically in the liquid reservoir and gradually removes the germs from it. So you can take your water, you can store it in here, and then eventually when all the germs are gone, you could take that water out and send it somewhere else. You can just dump it back into the environment because it's not going to spread germs anywhere. Or you can use it for whatever else you want. You can use it in an electrolyzer, and it's not gonna off-gas food poisoning germs into your oxygen. Not that that actually causes any issues anyways, it's just ugly and annoying, but just hypothetically. So that's one way you can deal with it. Another way you can deal with germy water in general, particularly if it's open, you could use radiation to kill it. Creatures such as shine bugs in Spaced Out will produce radiation in small amounts. And even the smallest amount of radiation is sufficient for starting to kill germs. So leave the water for long enough with a radiation source and it will do fine. It will become clean over time. The shine bugs produce radiation. Another good source of radiation is wheezeworts. These are a plant that you can find in frozen biomes. If you have a source of phosphorite to feed them with, you can just plant some wheezeworts near your stuff and they will produce radiation as well. So those are some options you have for just getting rid of the germs into water altogether so that you can then use it in another context. But I typically don't bother with this. What I typically just do to get my bathrooms set up at the start of the game is I use a plant to consume the excess water or the excess polluted water with all the germs. Because the plants don't care about the germs, and the products that the plants produce don't end up germy. So I find it a very effective and simple way of dealing with the germs and also dealing with the excess. So that's what I'm going to talk about next. So what you can do next is you can use a hydroponic farm tile to pump the excess water or polluted water from your bathroom loop, and you can use plants to directly consume the water. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to plant something here that only requires water and some other solid fertilizer maybe. So I'm just going to run through the plants in sequence here. So bog buckets are a pretty useful option when you're on a swampy asteroid. In this case, what you would do is you would hook up the excess polluted water instead of the excess clean water. So in this case, let's just remove that bridge here. Your clean water would be going in here, and then your excess polluted water would come out here. And you could obviously rearrange this just to be a little bit neater, but this is just to illustrate how it would look in this setup. So the polluted water would first of all go into the water sieve and get processed back into clean water. And then the excess polluted water would run out of here after this pipe is full, and it would go into the plant. Now, the only thing with this is if the water sieve isn't receiving power for whatever reason, then all the polluted water is going to go to the plant, and eventually it is going to be consumed. So I would recommend only doing something like this once you have a consistent power supply, be through coal power or just having a large amount of batteries in general. But bog buckets are a pretty good plant for this because they grow at room temperature. They don't require any other inputs. They only require the polluted water, so you can completely sustain these, ironically enough, from the bog. These plants consume 40 kilograms of polluted water per cycle. So because the lavatory produces 6.7 kilograms of polluted water per use, that means one plant can deal with the output of 6 duplicants per day. Now, if you have your duplicants going to the bathroom more than once per day, for whatever reason, you can have more plants, but I'm just going to assume your duplicants are going to the bathroom once per day, because that's usually how it works. And this lets you turn your bathroom waste into a little bit of food, very minimal requirements. Your base will usually be at this temperature, so if you're in a swampy biome, and you already have an abundance of polluted water and polluted oxygen, this is a good option to go with, especially at the start. So let's just continue with the polluted water consuming plants. So the next option is the arbor acorn, the arbor tree. So this tree has a slightly different temperature range, 15 to 40 degrees C. So not as well suited to slightly chillier environments. It consumes 70 kilograms of polluted water, so that's enough for just over 10 duplicants. It does require a little bit of dirt as well. It's not a huge amount of dirt. And I often go for these when I'm on forest starts, where say we're on Verdante or Oasis or any of those planets where you just start surrounded by pips and dirt. You're going to have access to these arbor trees, and they're going to be a fairly good shout. You'll have them right from the get-go. They're not too fussy. You don't get food from them, you'll get some lumber, but you're mostly just focused on consuming the excess polluted water. You're not too focused about what they're producing, but the extra lumber can be used in a wood burner for power and carbon dioxide, or you can use it for ethanol distillation. It doesn't really matter too much. But it's a pretty good option just because it's not a super fussy plant, and on forest starts you will have access to it immediately, just like you have access to the bog buckets immediately when you're on a swampy start. So they're both pretty good options. I'm going to skip the pinch of pepper now. So the next plant I want to talk about is the thimbleweed. So this is a really good option because it produces reed fiber, and it produces reed fiber very rapidly. Provided that you have enough duplicants to actually run your bathroom loops into one of these and keep it growing, you can produce a fair amount of reed fiber that you can just use for repairing Atmos suits, or for building Atmos suits, or for building decorations. It's pretty useful. The plant is a little bit fussier temperature-wise. It needs to be at least 22 degrees wherever your base is. Usually that's not going to be a problem. If you're not actively cooling your base, it's usually going to be hovering above 22 degrees anyways, especially the later on it goes. But just bear that in mind. Don't put it where it's super cold and you need to heat it up in general. But it's pretty good. It's not fussy about the atmosphere at all. None of these three plants I've talked about so far are that fussy. Oxygen, polluted oxygen, carbon dioxide are absolutely fine. The thimbleweed can be submerged as well, and it doesn't mind it too much. The bog bucket and the tree do not want to be submerged. But the tree doesn't care about what gas it's in at all. You can have your trees in chlorine. You can have your trees in hydrogen. They do not care provided that the air pressure is 150 grams minimum, which is typically what all plants require. They require at least 150 grams of gas in the air. So yeah, thimbleweed is a pretty good option. It consumes 160 kilograms of polluted water per cycle. This is enough to look after, I believe, 24 duplicants. So one thimbleweed can handle a whole colony's worth of duplicants. It's pretty good. It doesn't matter if the plant's only growing intermittently from the bathroom loop, because their aim is to consume the polluted water, not to actually grow whatever you're growing. And it's not like it's going to lose growth progress if it's not getting constant polluted water. It's just going to grow intermittently, which is absolutely fine. You definitely don't want to fertilize these plants, though, with a farm station, because they're getting intermittent water. But yeah, thimbleweed is a pretty good option. Grows quickly, can get you some seeds. It's very space efficient. If you've got a large bathroom complex, it can deal with all that polluted water in a very space efficient way, especially because it's a small plant and you require so few of them. So yeah, really recommend that option. The Saturn Critter Trap is also an option. I don't usually consider this, A, because it only consumes 10 kilograms of polluted water per cycle, which is literally only 1.5 duplicants worth. It also doesn't grow unless it's below freezing. And generally your bathrooms are not going to be below freezing because they require regular water as an input. So unless you're using insulated pipes and some shenanigans, this isn't going to be very relevant. You find them in radioactive biomes. Generally, it's not something you need to consider when you're setting up a bathroom loop in your base. And then the final plant that actually consumes polluted water is the pinch of pepper. And this is a bit different in that it grows from the ceiling. It's different for a few other reasons as well. You set up the pipe in the same sort of way. That's not going to cause any issues. But the issue with the pinch of pepper is it needs to be at least 35 degrees C to grow. So if your bathroom is in a really hot area or your base is overheating in general, and it's not suitable for the other plants I've talked about, like maybe you don't have arbor trees, maybe it's too hot for thimbleweeds, and bog buckets, this is an option. It's also an option if you're feeding the excess polluted water from your bathroom somewhere else, like to a heat source, like a metal refinery first. You can feed it to a pinch of pepper after that. and get rid of the hot water that way. Not fussy about the air. It does require some phosphorite as fertilizer. You can usually find this in the jungle biomes where the Drekos are, and Drekos produce a large amount of it from their diet anyways, so this isn't usually too much of an issue. And they consume 35 kilograms of polluted water per cycle, which is enough for 5 and a bit duplicants. So I would only really consider setting my bathroom up for this if the asteroid was really hot and the bathroom was in a hot area. But this is a good option in those cases. So those are all the plants that consume polluted water. The next plants I want to talk about consume the regular water. And generally, you would prefer feeding your excess bathroom water to plants that consume polluted water, because then it doesn't have to run through the sieve to actually get processed. And this way, if you're getting intermittent power, the polluted water is still being disposed of, although you are going to need to get water from somewhere else. But in terms of plants that consume clean water, start with the bristle blossom. So this grows in temperature range of 5 to 30 degrees C, which makes it quite suitable for cold environments like Rime, where you're trying to keep your bathroom and your base warm enough for people to cope. In that case, the bristle blossom is a fairly good plant for this. If the water is any colder, it's pretty much going to start freezing before it's getting to the liquid reservoirs, so you're aiming to get at least 5 degrees C so you can grow this guy. Not fussy on air pressure. It does require oxygen, polluted oxygen, or carbon dioxide as atmosphere, so bear that in mind. It only consumes 20 kilograms of water per cycle, so you'll need a bristle blossom for every 3 duplicants using the bathroom per day. And it produces bristleberries as food, which is pretty good. It also produces decor and floral scent germs. If you have allergies, dupes, don't use this plant because it will set them off and they'll be sneezing everywhere, which is very inefficient. But the airborne germs can be quite handy for getting rid of other airborne germs, and they relieve stress in general, so that's quite nice. The only thing is, they need a light, so you're going to need to have a light running permanently to keep the bristle blossom growing. And if it's not growing, it's not consuming the water. So you do need to think about that. The bristle blossom only consumes water. So so you need the light to operate for the bathroom to work, which is going to be a constant 10 watt draw if you're using a ceiling lamp, or 8 watts if you're using a regular floor lamp. Not the best option in the world, but it's a decent option if you're on a cool asteroid. And again, you're going to want to set this up with the bridge. So that way, you're only getting the water after it goes back into filling the bathroom loop. So that one is going to go like here. And that's what this would look like with the bristle blossoms. And you need 1 per 3 duplicants. So other water-consuming plants. The nosh bean is not a water-consuming plant. The sleet wheat. The sleet wheat similarly grows in a temperature range of minus 55 to 5 degrees. If your bathroom is in a cold area and you know it's not warming up, then this can be an option. It does consume a little bit of dirt as well. It does require a nice atmosphere. And what I would say about this plant is it's quite challenging because the polluted water that your duplicants produce is body temperature. It's going to be 37 degrees. So eventually the water in this loop is going to heat up to around body temperature. If you're on an asteroid where it's a bit cooler, it might stay cool for a while, but eventually if you've got an insulated base, it's going to get too hot to do this with sleet wheats. So I don't really recommend this in general. And then the other option we have is the oxyfern, which is not necessarily an awful option. It has a good temperature range. It consumes 19 kilograms of water per cycle. It does have to be in a carbon dioxide atmosphere, which can make it a bit fussy. It does require a bit of dirt. The main reason I would suggest not using an oxyfern for this is because if you're on a forest asteroid where you're primarily using these to get your oxygen, you're already going to have access to arbitraries, which are a less fussy plant that you could use for this application. You want to make sure that your oxyferns are constantly getting fed water so that they're constantly producing oxygen from it. So this is a bit of a waste of using this plant, so I don't recommend that either. And yeah, that's my summary of all the different plants that you can feed your excess bathroom water to. Generally, I would recommend the reed fiber first, the thimble reed if you have access to it. just because it's the most space efficient. It can handle the most duplicants going to the loo at once, and the reed fiber is useful. If you don't have that, I generally recommend a tree. Trees are pretty good. Bog buckets are pretty good as well if you have them, but they do take up a bit more space because they only handle enough polluted water for 6 duplicants. And then we start going into the more niche options. But yeah, generally, I highly recommend using a plant to deal with this stuff. So that's how you make a closed bathroom system. Once this is up and running, provided you've got enough power to constantly run the water sieve, and it's consistent, you're not going to have any issues with the pipes backing up or overflowing. So next, I just want to talk about some general best practices for bathrooms in general. So first of all, I typically like to set up my sinks so that they are facing outwards from the room, and so that your bathrooms are one way. Because if you don't have your bathroom one way, then your duplicants can run either direction to get out of here, and they have to run past the sink either way to remove the germs, otherwise it's spreading germs everywhere. So if it's not a one-way bathroom, you end up with 2 sinks per lavatory, because if you have, say, let's just do a hypothetical here. So if you have 2 lavatories and 2 duplicants go to the bathroom at the same time, but you don't know which direction they're coming from. If you just had 1 sink on each side, duplicants are both in the lavatories, they both leave on the same side. One duplicant starts using the sink, the other duplicant just runs straight past it because the sink is busy. So they don't stop and queue at the sink like normal British people do. So they just spread their germs everywhere. So you would need to double up on sinks, which obviously isn't very space efficient. So this is why I generally recommend making bathrooms one way only, so that you don't have to fit as many sinks in. If you're doing this in a base where you've got doors for airflow or whatever, what I would do is I would just set your doors up so that they're one way. And then that way you know where your duplicants are going. You can arrange this in such a way that it's convenient for your duplicants to access them via ladders or whatever. And then you've got everyone being handled in a fairly space efficient way. So that's good. The next thing I want to talk about as well is lights. Because your duplicants will go to the bathroom 15% faster if their light is on while they're doing it. They get the lit workspace bonus, which is pretty good. Especially because there's no skill or anything that makes them go to the bathroom faster. This is particularly relevant in cases where you have duplicants with irritable bowels, where it takes longer for them to go to the bathroom as well, because that bonus is additive with that penalty. If they're going to the bathroom without a light, they're going to take a lot longer. So what you can do is you can get a ceiling light, you can put it over wherever your buildings are, and then you can plug it in. And just plug it in over here. So you've got the light. Make sure that every tile is lit up. And then what you would do to make sure these lights aren't running constantly and consuming power and producing heat is you would set it up with a duplicant motion sensor. So you need a little bit of refined metal for this, but you could just get some with the rock crusher at the start of the game. I think it's worth doing just so your duplicants don't spend so long in the bathroom in general. So you put that here. You make sure that the sensor range, as indicated by the green square, covers all the buildings that you want it to cover. So in this case, I've got one covering these 2 lavatories and one covering these 2 sinks. So that way, if you hook them up with some automation wire, and we add a duplicant, so here's Ellie. So if we make Ellie run past the bathrooms, then you'll see that the lights turn on as Ellie runs past them, and then she'll actually get the bonus while she's using the buildings, and the lights aren't going to be wasting power for the rest of the time. So this is generally what I recommend doing. You can do it a little bit differently as well. You can leave a space. So if you leave a space like this between the buildings, then you could put the motion sensor up here and it can still cover 2 buildings. And then you can use a floor lamp, which uses a little bit less power. And you just hook up the automation wire like this. And it doesn't really matter what you do too much. It's just another option you have available to you. One thing I would suggest is if you're setting up bathrooms, you may as well set up a shower as well. So showers are also in the plumbing section. They are a recreation building that takes 1 kilogram per second of water in and produces 1 kilogram per second of polluted water out. And not only does this give the duplicant +3 morale, but it also removes negative debuffs that affect their attributes like athletics and stress. It removes sopping wet, it removes soggy feet, it removes major and minor eye irritation. I think it's almost always worth setting up showers if you actually have a bathroom loop set up. So what I would do in this case is I would set up... Well, I wouldn't set it up in the dirt now, would I? So I'd set up your showers. It doesn't really matter where they are relative to the bathroom, relative to the sink. So I would just hook those up so that their input pipes are hooked up to your water source as well. And then your output pipes can just be hooked up like your lavatory and your sink to the water sieve, just like that. And then again, we'll just put in the automation sensors here so you can see both options. So we put those here. Lamp goes here. Ceiling lamp goes here. Hook it up with power. And then you just want to get some automation wire as well. And there you go. So that's how you manage to fit them together. Now, one thing I would suggest as well is you're going to want to set up your bathroom items in a room so that your duplicants will get the morale bonus from having the room. So the initial room is the latrine, which only requires a toilet, a wash station, and it has to be between 12 and 64 tiles in size. So separate it off with doors to make sure that it counts as a distinct room. So here we go. Now it counts as a distinct room. 16 tiles. You could put your starting outhouse and wash basin in here. And now that's going to count as a latrine. And that alone is going to give your duplicant 1 extra morale, which might be relevant. The washroom gives you a better +2 morale bonus. And in this case, you need the lavatory and the sink specifically. You can't have any outhouses, and it's the same size requirements. So if we just take these out, and then you can see here, the room bonus is updated to a washroom because we've got both of these buildings in. So now it's giving +2 morale. So that's pretty important. Now, you can have other buildings in this room as well, but you can't have any industrial machinery. In this case, we have the... Sieve in here. And that Sieve is conflicting with these buildings because it counts as an industrial machinery building. It says here on the description it counts as an industrial machinery building. So when you're setting up your room, you can't have your Sieve in the same room as your bathroom stuff. So we're back, and now what we've done is we put some doors between the lavatory, the sink, and the showers, and the water sieve. And now you'll see that we've got the washroom bonus back. So you're getting the +2 morale from the room, and the bathroom needs are all still being handled by this water sieve here and whatever plant that you want to put here. So yeah, this is generally what I do in my bathrooms. I make them one way. I usually have a shower in there as well. Now, in terms of actually getting your duplicants to all go to the bathroom, you have a few tools at your disposal. So if you go to the schedule view, and we have a look at the schedule. So obviously this isn't a very good schedule. You need to have some downtime. So duplicants will go to the bathroom during downtime, and they'll prioritize those first usually. So you're going to want somewhere between 2 and 5 downtime slots, depending on morale requirements, and also how long it takes for duplicants to get back from their work tasks. If your duplicants are starting out right away, then you might only need 2 downtime slots because they're just immediately next to the base. They can come back to the base, go to the loo, eat their food, and then they can just go to sleep. But if they're running around all over the map, you'll probably want to give them 5 just so they have plenty of time to get back and start doing stuff. The other thing you can do is you can put in a specific bath time slot, and this counts as a work shift, but it makes the duplicants prioritize going to the bathroom. So what I would recommend for this as well is you could put a bath time slot at the beginning of their work day after they wake up from their sleep, and their bedrooms are presumably going to be right next to their bathrooms. So in this case, you can make sure that your duplicant is going to the bathroom before they go to work, if they need to. So this is an option you have access to as well. Now, if you have a load of duplicants, like let's say we've got like, what, 13 duplicants? That's a good number of duplicants. So if they're all on the same schedule, when they get to their downtime or their bath time or whatever, they're going to run into this room and they're going to all try and use this one lavatory, and only one duplicant is going to get the errand at a time because only one duplicant can actually use the building at a time. So the rest of the duplicants are going to go about the rest of their downtime doing whatever else they do in their downtime. And if the bathroom is never free at all after all of these schedule blocks, they just won't end up going to the bathroom until they desperately need to. If they reach 100% bladder, they'll try and make it to the bathroom, and then if they can't get to the bathroom, they'll just pee themselves. But you don't want to be relying on this, because your duplicant might, if they miss the bath time slot in the downtime schedule block, and they're off on the other side of the asteroid doing whatever task they're doing, then they might not make it back in time, and that's when duplicants typically pee themselves because of schedule issues. So, if you only have space for a small bathroom area, then you can set up lots of different schedules. And in this case, what this will do is it will make sure the duplicants are using the room at different times. And you can even, what you can even do is you can just make a schedule, a different schedule for each duplicant that's one cycle ahead of the others, or one schedule 1 hour ahead of the others. And that way, the duplicants are all going to the bathroom at different times. So in this case, if you had 2 different schedules and you were trying to get half the duplicants to go to the bathroom at one time and half of the duplicants to go to the bathroom at the other time, you would schedule these further apart. Like you would schedule them 12 cycles apart, for instance. So something like this. And then that way, each group of duplicants would be using the bathroom at different times, and you're getting twice as much use out of the single lavatory. And you can set up to 24 different schedules for your duplicants that are staggered away from each other so that everyone is constantly using the bathroom. That is quite efficient. It does take a little bit of micromanagement, and you do also need to pay attention to whether your duplicants are early birds or night owls, because if they're either of those things, you want your duplicants to be working and getting their attribute bonuses during those times, rather than going to the bathroom when they're not using those bonuses. So bear that in mind, but you can make as many schedules as you practically want to make it so your duplicants only require one bathroom. However, if you want your duplicants to use the bathroom at the same time for other reasons, like you want them to all use the recreation buildings on their downtime and all of that power at the same time, then you will want to build multiple lavatories in series. And you can adjust the numbers based on how many duplicants you want and how quickly they go to the loo and sort all of that out. So those are the 2 different approaches that you can take, really. But yeah, that's basically it. I just wanted to make a brief video where I was talking about bathrooms, that bit you have to do at the start of the game to get everyone to actually behave and not pee themselves everywhere. So if you like this video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe for more Oxygen Not Included problem solving and build guides and general sort of stuff. We do stream on Twitch. Our duplicants pee themselves a lot because I'm lazy with schedule management and getting my dupes trapped, etc. But the duplicants have lots of fun. We have lots of fun as well. There is a Discord where we hang out. People can answer questions that you have to do with Oxygen Not Included. We do play other games as well, like Dyson Sphere Program, Mega Aquarium. There's lots of things available. But yes, just thought you guys might appreciate a little video on this topic, because I know I could appreciate a little video actually summarizing everything. All right, thanks very much. Whiskers, take it away.
Whiskers sends thanks to the following Twitch subscribers and YouTube members: 999999999, Cyber Dinier, FRD. Grey Area, John Canon 86, Kuji Argizia, Neo Deus Machina, Sinister Plank, Sweet Danger Kitty, The Bat Guy, The Max Not Binary, and Uglavisk.